Terry Gordon jolts awake to find his denobulan girlfriend, Xena, looming over him. Her serene features twisted into a predatory grin. Bioluminescent tendrils snake from her wrists, reaching for his limbs. This is not how he expected to start his day as a human diplomat on Denobula. "Xena, what are you—" His words cut short as he rolls away, narrowly avoiding her grasp. Heart pounding, Terry scrambles out of their shared quarters, his mind racing to make sense of the situation. The corridor outside is eerily quiet, but not for long. Alarms blare through the human embassy, shattering the morning calm. Terry sprints down the hallway, bare feet slapping against the cold metal floor. He catches glimpses of other humans fleeing their quarters, pursued by denobulans with the same hunger in their eyes as Xena. "Gordon, in here, quick!" Dr. Jean, the mission's xenobiologist, waves frantically from an open doorway. Terry dives into the lab just as the door hisses shut behind him. The xenobiologist's face is pale, her usually neat hair disheveled. "What in the world is going on?" Terry gasps, trying to catch his breath. Dr. Jean's fingers fly over a console, engaging additional security measures. The denobulan mating cycle. It started early due to an unexpected solar flare. Their hormones are surging, making them aggressive and possessive towards their chosen mates. Terry's communicator chirps. Ambassador Reeves's voice crackles through, tense and urgent. "Gordon, we have a situation. Multiple denobulan partners have entered mating frenzy. We need a solution that won't offend our hosts or jeopardize the alliance. Find a way to pacify them, and fast." The weight of responsibility settles on Terry's shoulders. Earth's newly formed alliance with Denobula hangs in the balance. One wrong move could be seen as a grave insult to denobulan culture, undoing years of careful diplomacy. "Dr. Jean, we need to create a pheromone-based solution," Terry says, his diplomatic training kicking in. "Something to calm the denobulans without harming them or us." The xenobiologist nods, already moving towards her equipment. "I have some synthesized denobulan hormones we can work with, but we'll need to modify them to counteract the mating frenzy." As they work, chaos echoes through the embassy. Shouts and the sound of breaking objects filter through the lab's walls. Terry tries to focus, but his mind keeps drifting to Xena. He'd never seen her like that before, so primal and intense. A movement catches his eye. Through the lab's window, he spots Xena. She stands in the corridor, head tilted, nostrils flaring as if catching his scent. Their eyes lock, and Terry feels a shiver run down his spine. There's no mistaking the predatory focus in her gaze. "Dr. Jean," Terry says, his voice tight, "we might want to work faster. I don't think that door will hold Xena for long." As if on cue, a loud thud reverberates through the lab. Xena has begun her assault on the door, her bioluminescent tendrils probing for weaknesses in the seal. Terry turns back to the task at hand, acutely aware that time is running out. He needs to find a solution before Xena breaches the lab's defenses, or this diplomatic mission might end with him tied up in more ways than one. The lab door groaned under Xena's relentless assault, its metal frame beginning to buckle. Terry's eyes darted between the weakening barrier and Dr. John's nimble fingers as she worked feverishly at her station. "We're out of time," Terry said, his voice tight. "We need to test the pheromone solution now." Dr. Jean's head snapped up, her eyes wide. "But it's not fully synthesized. We don't know the side effects." "We don't have a choice," Terry interrupted, already moving towards her. "I'll be the test subject." Dr. Jean hesitated for a moment before nodding grimly. She quickly filled a small vial with the translucent liquid and handed it to Terry. "Apply it to your skin. And Terry, be careful." With a deep breath, Terry rolled up his sleeve and poured the cool liquid over his forearm. It tingled as it seeped into his pores. He looked at Dr. Jean, who gave him a tense nod. "Here goes nothing," he muttered, steeling himself as he approached the lab door. As soon as Terry disengaged the lock, the door burst open. Xena stood in the threshold, her bioluminescent tendrils writhing with anticipation. Her eyes locked onto Terry, and she lunged forward. Terry braced himself for impact, but to his surprise, Xena's movement slowed as she neared him. Her tendrils wrapped around his arms and legs, but their grip was gentler than before. Xena pressed her face against his neck, inhaling deeply. It's working, Terry breathed, relief washing over him. But his reprieve was short-lived. While Zena's aggression had diminished, her amorous intentions remained unchanged. She pulled Terry closer, her hands roaming his body with unmistakable purpose. Terry found himself caught in a delicate balance, trying to satisfy Zena's urges without fully succumbing to them. "Zena, we need to talk about this," Terry said, gently trying to create some distance between them. "The embassy—" His words were cut short by a blaring alarm. Red lights flashed in the corridor as Ambassador Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom. "Attention all personnel. Lockdown protocol has failed in Section C. Unauthorized denobulins have entered the premises. Proceed with extreme caution." Terry's heart sank. The situation had just become exponentially more complicated. He turned to Dr. Jean, who was monitoring the security feeds with growing concern. "Terry!" she called out, her voice strained. "You need to see this." As Terry approached the monitor, still entangled in Zena's embrace, he felt a strange warmth spreading across his skin. He looked down and gasped. His arms were emitting a faint, pulsating glow, not unlike Zena's bioluminescence. "An unexpected side effect," Dr. Jean explained hurriedly. "It seems the pheromone compound has triggered a bioluminescent response in your skin, and it's attracting more denobulins." The security feed showed a group of denobulins moving through the embassy with singular purpose, their eyes fixed on the cameras as if they could sense Terry's presence through them. Among the group, a familiar face caught Terry's attention. "Is that Zara?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Dr. Jean nodded grimly. "Your ex-girlfriend, and she doesn't look happy." Terry watched as Zara, her face set in a determined scowl, led the group towards their location. Her own bioluminescent tendrils glowed fiercely, pulsing with what Terry recognized as jealousy and possessiveness. "We need to move," Terry said, trying to disentangle himself from Zena. But she clung to him, her grip tightening as she sensed his intention to leave. As they struggled, more denobulins began to appear in the corridor, drawn by Terry's newfound glow. Their eyes fixed on him with an intensity that made him shiver. He was caught between Zena's possessive embrace and the growing crowd of aroused denobulins. "Dr. Jean," Terry called out, his voice strained as he tried to keep Zena at bay while watching the approaching denobulins. "We need a way to neutralize these pheromones fast." Dr. Jean was already back at her workstation, frantically analyzing data. "I'm working on it, but it's going to take time." Time was a luxury they didn't have. Terry could see Zara at the end of the corridor now, her eyes blazing with a mixture of desire and fury as she spotted him in Zena's arms. "Terry Gordon!" Zara's voice carried down the hallway, silencing the murmurs of the other denobulins. "It seems you've gotten yourself into quite a situation." Terry swallowed hard, acutely aware of Zena's possessive grip, the crowd of aroused denobulins, and his own betraying bioluminescence. He had to find a way to diffuse the situation before it escalated into a full-blown diplomatic crisis. "Zara," he began, his diplomatic training kicking in despite the absurdity of the situation. "I can explain," but Zara was already moving towards him, her tendrils reaching out. Behind her, the other denobulins followed, their eyes fixed on Terry's glowing skin. He was trapped between Zena's embrace and the advancing crowd, with no clear escape route. As the denobulins closed in, Terry realized that the pheromone solution had indeed solved one problem, only to create several more. With his skin glowing like a beacon, Zena clinging to him possessively, and a horde of amorous denobulins bearing down on him, Terry knew he was in for the diplomatic challenge of his career. Terry's mind raced as he found himself at the epicenter of a rapidly escalating crisis. The faint glow emanating from his skin, an unexpected side effect of the pheromone solution, was attracting more denobulins by the second. He attempted to retreat back to the relative safety of the lab, but Zena's tendrils maintained their firm grip on his body. "Zena, please," Terry pleaded, his voice strained. "We need to get back inside." But Zena's attention was now fixed on the approaching figure of Zara, Terry's ex-girlfriend and a high-ranking denobulin official. The tension in the corridor crackled like electricity as the two denobulin females faced off, their bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with increased intensity. Terry, caught between them, felt the pressure of the situation weighing heavily on his shoulders. He knew he had to act fast to prevent a diplomatic catastrophe. "Zara, Xena," he began, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're all reasonable beings here. Let's discuss this calmly, and—" His words were cut short as Zara's tendrils suddenly lashed out, intertwining with Xena's. The two denobulins began a complex display of bioluminescent patterns, their bodies undulating in a mesmerizing dance that Terry recognized as a precursor to a physical confrontation over mating rights. Inside the lab, Dr. Jean watched the unfolding chaos through the security cameras with growing alarm. She frantically worked on modifying the pheromone solution, her fingers flying over the control panel. "Terry," she called out through the communicator, "the pheromones are affecting the human staff too. Their heart rates are increasing, and they're showing heightened emotional responses. We need to neutralize this fast." Terry's mind raced. He needed a solution that would address the immediate crisis and prevent it from spreading further. An idea struck him. "Dr. Jean," he said, his voice urgent, "can we use the embassy's ventilation system to disperse a modified version of the solution? Something to calm everyone down?" There was a pause as Dr. Jean considered the proposal. "It's possible, but without proper testing, the results could be unpredictable. Are you sure you want to risk it?" Before Terry could respond, alarms blared throughout the embassy. Red lights flashed, and a computerized voice announced, "Alert! Unauthorized substance detected in ventilation system. Initiating emergency lockdown protocols." Metal shutters slammed down over windows and doors, sealing off sections of the embassy. Terry's heart sank as he realized they were now trapped inside with a growing number of pheromone-affected denobulins and humans. As the modified solution dispersed through the air vents, its effects began to manifest. The aggressive behavior of the denobulins started to subside, but an unexpected side effect emerged. Terry watched in astonishment as the humans around him, including himself, began to exhibit denobulin-like traits. His skin tingled as it developed a faint bioluminescent glow. An overwhelming urge to form emotional and physical connections with those around him washed over him. Terry found himself drawn to both Xena and Zara, his body responding to their bioluminescent displays. "What's happening to me?" Terry gasped, his voice trembling as he felt the full force of denobulin mating instincts course through his body. The three of them began a complex dance of light and emotion, their glowing bodies intertwining as the mating instincts took over. Terry struggled to maintain his human rational thought, but the pheromones clouded his judgment. Suddenly, a new sound cut through the chaos. Mechanical whirring filled the air as robotic security drones deployed throughout the facility. The embassy's security systems, reacting to the widespread biometric changes in the occupants, no longer recognized the humans as authorized personnel. "Intruder alert," the drones announced in unison. "Unauthorized alien presence detected. Initiating containment protocols." Terry, Xena, and Zara found themselves cornered by the advancing security drones. Despite their emotional and physical entanglement, they realized they needed to work together to survive. "We need to override the security systems," Terry said, his voice hoarse. "But how can we do that when we can barely control ourselves?" Zara's eyes narrowed in concentration, her diplomatic training kicking in despite the pheromone haze. "The main security hub, it's on the 3rd floor. If we can reach it, we might be able to shut down the drones and lift the lockdown." Xena nodded in agreement, her tendrils still wrapped protectively around Terry. "We'll need to move quickly and stay together. The drones won't distinguish between us." As they prepared to make their move, Terry realized that resolving this crisis would require not only his diplomatic skills, but also a deep understanding of both human and denobulin biology and culture. With the embassy in lockdown, security drones closing in, and his own body betraying him with alien urges, he knew that finding a solution would be the greatest challenge of his career. Terry took a deep breath, trying to center himself amidst the swirling emotions and physical sensations. "All right," he said, looking at Xena and Zara. "Let's move. We need to fix this before it destroys everything we've worked for." Together, the unlikely trio began their perilous journey through the embassy, their glowing bodies a beacon in the chaos, as they raced against time to restore order and save the fragile alliance between their species. Species and their fragile alliance. As they turned to face the advancing security drones, Terry's mind raced, searching for a solution. Suddenly, he noticed the intensity of their combined bioluminescent glow. An idea struck him, born from his newly acquired denobulan traits and diplomatic instincts. "Xena, Zara," he said urgently, "I need you to trust me. We can use our bioluminescence to confuse the drone's sensors." The two denobulan females looked at him skeptically, but the approaching mechanical whir of the drones left little room for debate. "What do you need us to do?" Zara asked, her voice tense. "Synchronize your light patterns with mine," Terry instructed, concentrating on manipulating his newfound ability. "Focus on creating a pulsing, hypnotic rhythm." As the drones closed in, the trio began to glow in unison. Their bodies pulsed with an otherworldly light, creating a dazzling display that grew more intense with each passing second. The effect was immediate. The drones' movements became erratic, their sensors overwhelmed by the unexpected light show. "It's working!" Xena exclaimed, her tendrils writhing with excitement. Terry seized the moment. "Now's our chance! Run!" They dashed past the disoriented drones, their synchronized bioluminescence leaving a trail of confused machines in their wake. As they sprinted through the embassy corridors, they encountered a surreal landscape of human denobulan interactions. In one room, a human diplomat was locked in an embrace with two denobulans, their bodies glowing faintly. In another, a group of mixed species were engaged in what appeared to be an impromptu dance, their movements guided by the pulsing of their skin. "We need to get to the central environmental control room," Terry panted as they ran. "It's our best chance to purge the pheromones from the air." As they turned a corner, they nearly collided with a security drone. Without missing a beat, the trio intensified their bioluminescent display, causing the drone to spin in circles before crashing into a wall. Finally, they reached the control room. Terry's fingers flew over the alien interface, his enhanced understanding of denobulan technology guiding his actions. "I'm initiating the purge," he announced, activating the air filtration system. As the pheromones began to dissipate, a new wave of chaos swept through the embassy. Xena and Zara suddenly doubled over, clutching their stomachs. "What's happening?" Terry asked, alarmed by their distress. Zara gritted her teeth through the pain. "The pheromones! Our bodies are struggling to readjust." Terry felt a wave of nausea hit him as well. He stumbled to the communication panel and managed to establish a link with Dr. Jean's lab. "Doctor, we've purged the pheromones, but everyone's experiencing severe withdrawal symptoms," Terry reported, fighting back the urge to vomit. Dr. Jean's voice crackled through the speaker. "The sudden chemical imbalance could lead to dangerous physiological responses. I'm working on a stabilizing compound, but it will take time." As Terry waited for the doctor's solution, he became acutely aware of the growing tension between Xena and Zara. Their tendrils began to twitch aggressively, and their eyes darted between each other and Terry. "Terry," Xena purred, her voice strained but alluring, "you understand us now. You're one of us." Zara stepped closer, her own tendrils reaching out. "No, he's always been meant for me. Our past connection is stronger than any artificial bond." Terry felt pulled in both directions, his partially active mating instincts warring with his rational mind. "Please," he pleaded, "we need to focus on resolving this crisis." Before the situation could escalate further, the main communication screen flickered to life. Ambassador Reeves appeared, his face grave. "Terry, we have a situation," the ambassador said. "The denobulan government has been informed of our predicament. They're demanding an immediate resolution." Terry's heart sank. "How long do we have?" "Hours at most," Reeves replied. "And there's more. A denobulan military ship has entered orbit. They're threatening to take drastic measures if we don't contain this soon." As if on cue, another communication channel opened. A stern-faced denobulan male appeared on the screen, his military uniform adorned with imposing insignias. "This is General Crixus of the Denobulan Defense Force," he announced, his voice cold and authoritative. "I am here to inform you that you have 1 hour to grit this situation before we are forced to take action. The potential contamination of our population cannot be allowed to spread further. Terry's mind raced as he considered their options. The pheromone crisis, the withdrawal symptoms, the diplomatic tensions, and now the threat of military intervention. It all seemed insurmountable. But as he looked at Xena and Zara, still struggling with their own physical and emotional turmoil, an idea began to form. It was risky, potentially dangerous, and would push the boundaries of both human and denobulan comfort zones. But it might just be crazy enough to work. "General," Terry addressed the denobulan commander, "I have a proposal, but I'll need access to the embassy's holographic systems and the cooperation of everyone involved." As he began to outline his daring plan, Terry knew that the next hour would determine not just his fate, but the future of human-denobulan relations. With the clock ticking and the stakes higher than ever, he prepared to take the greatest risk of his diplomatic career. As Terry finished outlining his plan, the embassy's lights flickered ominously, casting eerie shadows across the faces of Xena and Zara. "We don't have much time," Terry said, his voice strained. "Let's move." The trio rushed towards the holographic control room, their bioluminescent skin casting an otherworldly glow in the dimly lit corridors. As they rounded a corner, the floor beneath them shuddered, and a nearby control panel erupted in a shower of sparks. "The power grid is destabilizing," Xena warned, her tendrils twitching nervously. They burst into the holographic control room, only to find it in chaos. The emitters sputtered and fizzed, projecting fragmented images that flickered in and out of existence. A holographic denobulan tree materialized in front of Terry, its branches phasing through his body before dissolving into static. "This is worse than I thought," Terry muttered, his fingers flying over the control panel. "The system's barely operational." Zara pushed him aside, her own hands dancing across the interface. "Let me try. I've had experience with similar systems on Denobula." As Zara worked, Terry felt a wave of nausea wash over him. He stumbled, catching himself on a nearby console. Xena was at his side in an instant, her tendrils wrapping around his arm for support. "Terry, you're burning up," she said, concern evident in her voice. Before Terry could respond, the door hissed open, revealing Dr. Jean. The scientist looked haggard, her lab coat stained and her hair disheveled. "Thank goodness I found you," Dr. Jean panted, holding up a vial of iridescent liquid. "I've synthesized a stabilizing compound for the pheromone withdrawal, but it needs to be administered individually." Terry nodded weakly. "We need to prioritize. Start with the key personnel who can help us tenacity this crisis." As Dr. Jean approached with the compound, Terry felt a strange sensation wash over him. His mind suddenly filled with fragments of thoughts and emotions that weren't his own. He gasped, looking at Xena and Zara in shock. "Did you feel that?" he asked. Zara nodded, her eyes wide. "It's like, I can sense your thoughts." Dr. Jean frowned, studying her medical tricorder. "Fascinating. The pheromone exposure seems to have created a temporary telepathic link between humans and denobulans." "We can use this," Terry said, his mind racing. "If the holographic systems fail, we might be able to create a shared mental space for the mating ritual." As they discussed this new development, Ambassador Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom. "Terry, we're running out of time. General Crixus is positioning his ship for a potential strike. We need to show them we have this under control. Now." Terry looked at Dr. Jean. "Can you modify the compound to enhance the telepathic link?" The doctor hesitated. "It's risky, but—" "Yes, I believe I can." "Do it," Terry said firmly. He turned to Xena and Zara. "We'll be the focal points. Are you with me?" The two denobulan females exchanged a glance, their rivalry momentarily forgotten in the face of this crisis. They nodded in unison. As Dr. Jean worked to modify the compound, Terry, Xena, and Zara linked hands, forming a circle. Their bioluminescent glow intensified, pulsing in sync with their heartbeats. "Ready?" Dr. Jean asked, approaching with 3 syringes. Terry took a deep breath. "Do it!" The doctor injected each of them in turn. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Terry felt a surge of energy coursing through his body. His vision blurred, and he felt his consciousness expanding, reaching out to touch the minds of Xena and Zara. Suddenly, they were no longer in the embassy. They found themselves in a vivid mental landscape that blended elements of Earth and Denobula. Floating islands of lush bioluminescent vegetation hung in a star-filled sky. Streams of glowing energy flowed between the islands, pulsing with the combined heartbeats of humans and Denobulans. Terry could sense the presence of others joining them in this shared space. Diplomats, staff members, all linked in this unprecedented mental connection. "It's working," Xena's voice echoed in his mind. "But how do we proceed?" Terry focused his thoughts, projecting them to all participants. "We need to guide everyone through a symbolic mating ritual that honors both our cultures. Follow our lead." As they began to move through the mental landscape, Terry sensed confusion and hesitation from some participants. He realized that guiding this improvised ritual would require all of his diplomatic skills, augmented by his newfound Denobulan traits. In the physical world, Ambassador Reeves watched in awe as the bodies of Terry, Xena, and Zara glowed with an intense light that spread to others in the embassy. He turned to the communication screen, where General Crixus's stern face had softened into an expression of intrigue. "General," Reeves said, seizing the moment, "what you're witnessing is an unprecedented joining of our species. I propose we postpone any action and observe this historic event." As the shared mental mating ritual unfolded, Terry found himself at the center of a swirling vortex of emotions, instincts, and cultural memories. He knew that the next few moments would determine not just the fate of this crisis, but the future of human-Denobulan relations. With Xena and Zara at his side, Terry took the first step into the unknown, ready to guide both species through this unique and intimate experience. The mental landscape shimmered around them, reflecting the collective hopes and fears of all participants, as they embarked on a journey that would reshape the very foundations of interstellar diplomacy. Diplomacy. As Terry, Xena, and Zara delved deeper into the shared mental space, the intensity of their connection grew exponentially. The boundaries between individual consciousness blurred, creating a swirling vortex of thoughts and emotions that drew in both humans and Denobulans alike. Terry felt his mind expand, encompassing the collective experiences of everyone involved in the mating ritual. Flashes of alien memories intertwined with his own, creating a tapestry of shared existence. He saw glimpses of Denobulan childhoods, felt the excitement of first space flights, and experienced the joy of human discoveries through the eyes of others. The mental landscape shifted and morphed, reflecting the merging of cultures. Holographic representations of Earth's lush forests intertwined with Denobula's bioluminescent flora, creating a surreal environment that pulsed with life and energy. As the shared consciousness intensified, Terry noticed an unexpected physical manifestation. The bioluminescent glow emanating from his skin, as well as Xena's and Zara's, began to intensify. The radiance spread throughout the embassy, enveloping every participant in a soft, otherworldly light. Ambassador Reeves, observing from the command center, watched in awe as the entire building began to glow. He turned to the communication screen, where General Crixus's stern expression had softened into one of fascination. "General," Reeves said, his voice filled with wonder, "are you seeing this?" Crixus nodded, his eyes wide. "Our sensors are detecting an unprecedented energy signature emanating from the embassy. It's beautiful." As the mental and physical manifestations of the shared mating ritual reached their peak, a surge of energy coursed through the embassy's systems. The malfunctioning holographic emitters sparked to life, but instead of projecting pre-programmed images, they began to materialize the shared mental landscape into the physical world. Terry watched in amazement as the embassy's interior transformed. The walls shimmered and rippled, taking on the appearance of Denobulan rock formations interspersed with Earth's flora. Bioluminescent patterns danced across the ceiling, mimicking the starry skies of both worlds. Xena gasped, her tendrils twitching with excitement. "It's as if our minds are reshaping reality itself." Zara nodded, her eyes wide with wonder. "The boundaries between thought and matter are blurring. This is beyond anything I've ever experienced." As the shared consciousness deepened, Terry became aware of a rapid change occurring within his own body. He felt his senses sharpening, his perception of time and space altering. Glancing at his hands, he noticed faint ridges forming along his skin, reminiscent of denobulin physiology. "Dr. Jean," Terry called out, his voice echoing strangely in the transformed space. "Something's happening to us physically. Can you run some scans?" The doctor's voice crackled through the embassy's communication system. "I'm already on it, Terry. The pheromone-induced changes are accelerating at an alarming rate. Humans are developing denobulin traits, and denobulins are exhibiting human characteristics. If we don't find a way to reverse this soon, the changes could become permanent." The gravity of the situation hit Terry like a physical blow. He realized that in their attempt to willpower the crisis, they might have inadvertently triggered an even greater transformation. Suddenly, a new presence entered the shared mental space. Terry felt the minds of denobulin scientists joining the collective consciousness, their thoughts tinged with a mix of curiosity and concern. "The General has sent a scientific team to assist us," Ambassador Reeves's voice echoed through the mindscape. "They've brought advanced medical equipment to analyze the bioenergetic fields permeating the building." As the denobulin scientists began their work, Terry felt a subtle shift in the energy surrounding them. The shared consciousness seemed to pulse and throb, as if responding to the probing scans. One of the denobulin scientists, her thoughts clear in the collective mind, spoke directly to Terry. "We've discovered something alarming. The telepathic link has created a self-sustaining energy field. It's drawing power from the embassy's systems and the bioelectric auras of all participants. Simply severing the connection could cause severe neurological damage." Terry's mind raced, processing the implications. How long would it take to safely dissolve the shared consciousness? The scientist's response was tinged with uncertainty. "Based on our initial calculations, a gradual dissolution could take several days. However, we don't have that kind of time." As if to underscore the urgency of their situation, a discordant note rippled through the shared mindscape. Terry felt a presence, alien and invasive, slithering through the collective consciousness. "The virus," Zara gasped, her thoughts echoing Terry's realization. "It's adapting to the new energy patterns. If we don't stop it, it could spread beyond the embassy's systems." Terry focused his thoughts, reaching out to all participants in the shared consciousness. "Everyone, listen carefully. We need to combine our mental efforts to combat this virus. Visualize it as a tangible enemy, something we can fight together." As the collective mind turned its attention to the virus, the holographic manifestations in the embassy began to shift. The merged human denobulin environments gave way to abstract representations of data streams and code structures. The mating ritual transformed into a shared problem-solving exercise, with participants working together to isolate and neutralize the viral threat. Terry found himself at the forefront of this mental battle, guiding the collective consciousness with his unique blend of human intuition and newly acquired denobulin analytical skills. He could feel the strain of maintaining the telepathic link while combating the virus, his energy slowly depleting. Glancing at Xena and Zara, he saw that they too were showing signs of exhaustion. Their bioluminescent glow flickered and pulsed erratically, mirroring the instability of the shared consciousness. As they pushed their mental and physical limits, Terry became acutely aware of a new danger. The virus, cornered by their collective efforts, launched a desperate counterattack. He felt it attempting to overload the embassy's power systems, creating a dangerous feedback loop. "Dr. Jean," Terry called out, his voice strained. "The virus is trying to overload the systems. We need a way to safely disconnect everyone before—" His words were cut short as a surge of energy rippled through the shared mindscape. The holographic environments flickered and distorted, reflecting the chaos in the embassy's systems. Terry knew they were running out of time. The combined strain of maintaining the telepathic link, fighting the virus, and resisting the physiological changes was pushing them to the brink. He had to make a decision, and quickly. As he prepared to make his choice, Terry felt the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. The fate of everyone in the embassy, the future of human denobulin relations, and the potential for a new era of interspecies cooperation all hung in the balance. Whatever he decided would have far-reaching consequences, and there was no guarantee of success. With a deep breath, Terry steeled himself for what was to come. He reached out to Xena and Zara, drawing strength from their presence in the shared consciousness. Together, they would face the challenge head-on, whatever the outcome might be. With a final surge of mental energy, Terry made his decision. He would push the shared consciousness to its absolute limits, channeling every ounce of willpower from both humans and denobulans into a last-ditch effort to neutralize the virus before it could trigger the electromagnetic pulse. "Everyone, focus your minds," Terry projected his thoughts through the collective consciousness. "We need to combine our mental strength to overwhelm the virus." As the participants responded to Terry's call, the bioluminescent glow emanating from their bodies intensified dramatically. The embassy was bathed in an otherworldly light, pulsating with the combined mental efforts of all involved. Terry felt the strain immediately, his mind stretched to accommodate the influx of psychic energy, threatening to snap under the pressure. Beside him, Xena and Zara's faces contorted with effort, their tendrils writhing in response to the mental exertion. The virus fought back, its digital tendrils lashing out against the onslaught of psychic force. Terry gritted his teeth, pushing harder. He could sense the virus's defenses beginning to crumble under the relentless assault. "It's working!" Zara's voice echoed through the mindscape. "The virus is losing ground!" As they pressed their advantage, Terry felt his control slipping. The shared consciousness threatened to fragment under the immense strain. Instinctively, Xena and Zara moved closer to him, their physical proximity strengthening the telepathic bond. The moment their bodies made contact, an unexpected reaction occurred. The bioluminescent patterns on their skin began to synchronize, forming intricate, pulsating designs. This mesmerizing display spread rapidly to the other participants, creating a network of light that mirrored the structure of their shared mental state. Dr. John's voice cut through the haze of Terry's concentration. "The synchronized bioluminescence is enhancing your connection. It's acting as a physical conduit for the shared consciousness." With this newfound strength, Terry redoubled his efforts. He directed the full force of the collective mind against the virus, feeling it buckle under the pressure. The embassy's systems began to stabilize as the malicious code was gradually purged. In the command center, Ambassador Reeves watched in awe as the holographic displays shifted from chaotic data streams to scenes of harmony between humans and denobulans. He turned to the communication screen, where General Crixus's face showed a mix of wonder and respect. "General," Reeves said, his voice filled with emotion, "I believe we're witnessing a turning point in our species' history." Crixus nodded solemnly. "Indeed, Ambassador, this display of cooperation is unprecedented. We must document this event carefully." As the two leaders began drafting a joint statement, Terry felt the last vestiges of the virus dissolve. The shared mental landscape pulsed with triumph, but the victory was short-lived. The prolonged exposure to the intense telepathic link began to take its toll on the participants. Throughout the embassy, humans and denobulans alike started to show signs of extreme fatigue. Some swayed on their feet, while others collapsed entirely. Dr. John and the denobulan medical team sprang into action, administering a modified version of the stabilizing compound to prevent severe neurological damage. Terry, still at the core of the shared consciousness, felt the collective mind beginning to fragment. He recognized the danger immediately and began guiding the dissolution of the telepathic link, using every ounce of his diplomatic skill to ease the transition for both species. As he worked to dismantle the shared consciousness, Terry became acutely aware of the lasting effects of the experience. His empathy had been enhanced, and he found himself with a deeper, almost instinctive understanding of denobulan culture and biology. Just as the telepathic link began to weaken, the embassy's systems detected an incoming transmission. Terry's attention snapped to the new development, his mind racing with possibilities. Dr. Jane's voice crackled over the intercom, tinged with excitement and trepidation. "We're receiving a signal from an unknown source. It appears to be a new alien species." The revelation sent a ripple of surprise through the remaining shared consciousness. Terry focused his attention on the incoming message, translating it for the benefit of the others still connected. "They've been observing us," he announced, his mental voice filled with awe. "They're intrigued by our display of interspecies cooperation and want to initiate first contact." As the implications of this new development sank in, Terry felt the telepathic link continue to weaken. However, he, Xena, and Zara found themselves drawn into a more intimate connection. Their synchronized bioluminescence intensified, creating a cocoon of pulsating light around them. Dr. Jean's voice cut through their shared experience once more. "Terry, Xena, Zara, your connection appears to be evolving. We're detecting signs of a potential symbiosis forming between you." The trio's awareness shifted, focusing on the unique bond forming between them. They could feel their thoughts and emotions intertwining in ways that transcended their previous understanding of communication. As the embassy buzzed with activity, medical teams tending to exhausted participants, diplomats preparing for potential contact with a new alien race, Terry, Xena, and Zara remained at the center of it all, enveloped in their bioluminescent cocoon. Their unique connection held the promise of a new form of interspecies relationship, one that could reshape the future of human-denobulin relations. The challenges ahead were numerous and complex, but in that moment, suspended in a web of light and shared consciousness, Terry felt a profound sense of possibility. Whatever came next, they would face it together, their bond a testament to the potential for understanding and cooperation across the stars. The bioluminescent cocoon surrounding Terry, Xena, and Zara began to flicker and fade, its pulsating light growing dimmer with each passing moment. As the intensity of their connection waned, the trio felt their individual consciousnesses slowly re-emerging, like islands rising from a receding tide. Terry blinked, his vision clearing as the last vestiges of the shared mindscape dissolved. He became acutely aware of his body once more, noticing an unfamiliar sensation rippling across his skin. Glancing down at his arms, he gasped softly. A faint, iridescent sheen now covered his flesh, reminiscent of the denobulin's bioluminescent glow. Beside him, Xena and Zara stirred, their alien features subtly altered. Terry's eyes widened as he took in their appearance. The sharp angles of their faces had softened, lending them a more human-like countenance. It was as if their prolonged symbiotic state had blurred the lines between their species. Dr. Jean approached, his expression a mix of concern and fascination. He held up a handheld scanner, its screen flickering erratically as he passed it over Terry. "Fascinating," he murmured, tapping the device. "The energy field you're emitting is interfering with our equipment." Ambassador Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom, tension evident in his tone. "Dr. Jean, what's the situation with our unique trio?" The doctor hesitated before responding. "Preliminary scans suggest a partial alteration of their DNA. It appears we're dealing with a hybrid state, combining traits from both species. I'd recommend immediate quarantine and observation." Terry's heart raced as he processed the implications. He turned to Xena and Zara, their eyes meeting in a moment of shared uncertainty. Despite the dissipation of their physical connection, he could still sense their emotions, a swirling mixture of fear, excitement, and confusion that mirrored his own. "Ambassador," Terry called out, his voice steadier than he felt, "I think we need to discuss our next steps carefully. This situation is unprecedented." Before Reeves could respond, another voice joined the conversation, the gravelly tones of General Crixus. "I concur, Ambassador. The Denobulin High Council has expressed concerns about this development. They're requesting that Xena and Zara be returned to our homeworld for further study." Terry felt a spike of alarm from his Denobulin companions. He opened his mouth to protest, but Reeves cut him off. "I'm afraid that won't be possible, General. We've received similar directives from Earth. All 3 individuals must remain here for observation and containment." As the 2 leaders argued, Terry noticed a strange tingling sensation spreading across his skin. Glancing down, he saw patterns of light dancing across his arms, responding to his agitation. Xena and Zara exhibited similar displays, their bioluminescence pulsing in complex, mesmerizing patterns. Dr. Jean's eyes widened as he observed the phenomenon. "Incredible," he breathed. "It seems they've retained some control over their bioluminescent capabilities. This could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies communication. A sudden tremor shook the embassy, cutting off further discussion. Alarms blared as the lights flickered ominously. "What's happening?" Terry demanded, steadying himself against a nearby console. A technician's voice responded, panic evident in their tone. "Sir, we're detecting system-wide malfunctions. Life support, communications, everything's going haywire." As chaos erupted around them, Terry felt a sudden clarity. Without thinking, he reached out to Xena and Zara. The moment their hands connected, a surge of energy pulsed through them. Their combined bioluminescence flared brightly, creating a localized field that seemed to stabilize the malfunctioning systems in their immediate vicinity. Dr. John stared at them in amazement. They're stabilizing the system somehow. Ambassador General, you need to see this." Terry met Xena and Zara's eyes, a silent understanding passing between them. They had the power to help, but at what cost? As they stood there, hands linked and bodies glowing, the weight of their decision pressed down upon them. The fate of the embassy, and perhaps the future of human denobulan relations, now rested in their newly transformed hands. Hands. Their newly transformed bodies pulsed with energy, casting an eerie glow throughout the darkened embassy. Terry exchanged a meaningful glance with Xena and Zara. Without speaking, they reached a silent agreement. The crisis demanded immediate action, regardless of the potential consequences to themselves. "Ambassador Reeves," Terry called out, his voice steady despite the chaos surrounding them. "We can stabilize the systems, but we'll need unrestricted access to the embassy's core infrastructure." A tense silence followed before Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom. "Granted, but under strict monitoring. Dr. Jean, assemble a team to observe their actions at all times." As Terry, Xena, and Zara moved through the embassy, their bioluminescence intensified, creating a protective field around them. The malfunctioning systems seemed to respond to their presence, flickering back to life as they passed. Dr. Jean and his team followed closely, their handheld scanners emitting a constant stream of data. "Incredible," the doctor muttered, his eyes fixed on the readings. "They're interfacing directly with the embassy's technology. It's as if their hybrid physiology has turned them into living conduits." The trio reached the central control room, where banks of computers blinked erratically. Terry placed his hand on the main console, feeling a surge of energy course through him. Xena and Zara followed suit, their fingers splaying across the control panels. As they connected with the embassy's systems, a flood of information washed over them. Terry gasped, momentarily overwhelmed by the influx of data. He could sense every malfunctioning circuit, every corrupted line of code. "Focus," Xena urged, her voice echoing in Terry's mind. "We need to channel the energy, not just absorb it." Together, they directed their combined abilities towards the embassy's power grid. The lights flickered, then steadied. Alarms ceased their incessant wailing as systems came back online one by one. Dr. Jean's voice cut through their concentration. Their vital signs are spiking, heart rates are off the charts, and their body temperatures are rising rapidly. Terry barely registered the doctor's words, too focused on the task at hand. He could feel his body changing, a strange tingling sensation spreading across his skin. Out of the corner of his eye, he noticed Xena and Zara undergoing similar transformations. Xena's features seemed softer, more human-like, while Zara's skin had taken on a faint iridescent sheen. As the last of the embassy's systems stabilized, Terry felt a wave of exhaustion wash over him. He staggered back from the console, his vision blurring. Xena and Zara caught him, their touch sending a jolt of energy through his body. "We need to get them to the medical bay immediately," Dr. Jean ordered, his voice tinged with urgency. As they were led away, Terry became aware of the tense atmosphere surrounding them. Human and denobulan officials watched warily, their expressions a mix of awe and fear. In the medical bay, a team of scientists swarmed around them, taking samples and running scans. Terry caught snippets of their excited chatter. Unprecedented cellular regeneration, enhanced sensory perception off the charts, potential military applications. The words sent a chill down Terry's spine. He met Xena and Zara's eyes, seeing his own concern reflected there. Their moment of shared apprehension was interrupted by a sudden tremor that shook the embassy. Alarms blared once again as emergency lights bathed the room in a red glow. "What's happening?" Terry demanded, pushing himself up from the examination table. A technician's panicked voice filled the room. "Massive energy surge detected. It's overwhelming the power grid." Terry felt a pull, an instinctive urge to return to the control room. He reached for Zena and Zara, their hands clasping together automatically. As they moved towards the door, Dr. Jean stepped in their path. "Wait, we don't know the extent of your transformations. It could be dangerous to—" His words were cut off as the lights went out, plunging the embassy into darkness. In the sudden blackness, Terry, Zena, and Zara's bioluminescence flared brightly, casting long shadows across the walls. "We have to go," Terry said firmly, brushing past the doctor. As they navigated the darkened corridors, Terry became acutely aware of his heightened senses. He could hear the rapid heartbeats of panicked embassy staff, smell the acrid scent of overheated circuitry. They turned a corner and found themselves face to face with a group of security personnel. The guards raised their weapons instinctively, then hesitated, clearly unsure how to react to the glowing trio. "Stand down," Terry commanded, surprised by the authority in his own voice. "We're here to help." As they continued through the embassy, Terry noticed strange energy pulses emanating from one of the research labs. The pulses seemed to resonate with their hybrid physiology, creating a disorienting effect. Suddenly, Terry's vision blurred, and he found himself standing in a sunlit field. Zena and Zara were there, but they looked different, fully human. The vision vanished as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Terry shaken. "Did you see that?" Zara whispered, her voice trembling. Before they could discuss the shared hallucination, a blood-curdling screech echoed through the corridors. Something was moving in the darkness, something that didn't belong. "The containment protocols," Zena gasped. "They must have failed when the power went out." As if in response to her words, a shadowy form lunged at them from the darkness. Terry reacted instinctively, his hands shooting out. A burst of energy erupted from his palm, sending the creature flying backwards. "We need to get to the control room," Terry said, his voice tight with urgency. "Whatever's loose in here, we can't let it escape the embassy." As they pressed on, the sounds of pursuit grew closer. The escaped specimens, drawn to their unique energy signature, were closing in, and somewhere in the darkness, alternate realities flickered at the edges of their vision, offering tantalizing glimpses of what might have been. Terry, Zena, and Zara quickened their pace, their bioluminescent glow cutting through the oppressive darkness. They had to reach the control room, had to find a way to contain this crisis before it spiraled even further out of control. The fate of the embassy, and perhaps the future of human denobulan relations, depended on it. Their newly transformed hands. As they stood linked together, the embassy plunged into total darkness. Their bioluminescent glow became the sole source of light, casting eerie shadows on the walls around them. "We need to get to the main power core," Terry said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's our only chance to restore electricity and contain this situation." Zena nodded, her features now softer and more human-like in the dim light. "Agreed, but we'll need to be careful. Who knows what else might be loose in here?" As if in response to her words, a low growl echoed through the darkened corridor. Terry felt a chill run down his spine, his newly enhanced senses picking up the rapid heartbeats of his companions. "Stay close," Zara murmured, her skin shimmering with an iridescent sheen. "Our bond seems to amplify our abilities. We're stronger together." They moved through the maze-like structure of the embassy, their glowing bodies illuminating the path ahead. Terry marveled at how easily they navigated the twisting corridors, their heightened senses guiding them through the darkness. Suddenly, a blur of movement caught Terry's eye. He spun around, instinctively raising his hand. A burst of energy erupted from his palm, striking a creature that had been poised to attack. The alien specimen, a mass of writhing tentacles and glowing spots, screeched as it was thrown back against the wall. "That was too close," Terry gasped, staring at his hand in amazement. Zena grabbed his arm, pulling him forward. "We can't stop. There might be more of them." As they pressed on, Terry became acutely aware of the changes happening to his body. His skin tingled, taking on a more pronounced denobulan texture. He glanced at Xena and Zara, noticing their features becoming increasingly human-like. "We're still transforming," Zara said, voicing Terry's concerns. "If we don't find a way to stabilize soon—" She left the thought unfinished, but Terry understood. Their original forms might be lost forever. They reached the entrance to the power core, the massive door sealed shut due to the lockdown. Xena placed her hand on the control panel, closing her eyes in concentration. After a moment, the door slid open with a hiss. Inside, the main reactor lay dark and silent. Sparks occasionally burst from damaged conduits, illuminating the extent of the destruction. "This is worse than I thought," Xena said, her voice tight with concern. "We'll need to work together to repair this." Terry nodded, surprising himself with his sudden understanding of the complex machinery before him. "I'll coordinate our efforts. Xena, focus on the main power couplings. Zara, see if you can redirect the energy flow from the auxiliary systems." As they worked, Terry felt a strange connection to the embassy's systems. It was as if he could see the flow of energy, the intricate patterns of data coursing through the circuits. He guided Xena and Zara's efforts, their movements perfectly synchronized thanks to their empathic bond. A loud crash behind them shattered their concentration. Terry whirled around to see a massive creature lunging towards them. It was unlike anything he had ever seen, a predator with multiple limbs and patches of bioluminescence pulsing along its body. Terry raised his hands, attempting to create another energy burst, but he was too slow. The creature's claws slashed across his arm, drawing blood. He cried out in pain, stumbling backward. Xena and Zara moved as one, their bodies glowing intensely. They raised their hands, creating a shimmering field of energy between them and the creature. The alien slammed into the barrier, howling in frustration. To Terry's amazement, he watched as the wound on his arm began to close, healing at an accelerated rate. The process left him feeling drained, but the immediate danger had passed. "Are you all right?" Zara asked, her eyes wide with concern. Terry nodded, flexing his newly healed arm. "Yes, but we need to finish the repairs quickly. I don't think that containment field will hold for long." They returned to their work with renewed urgency. As Terry interfaced with the main control system, he became aware of increased activity outside the embassy. The sound of shuttles taking off filled the air. "The denobulans," he realized aloud. "General Crixus must be evacuating their personnel." Xena's face tightened with concern. "If all the denobulans leave, it could irreparably damage relations between our species." With a final surge of effort, they managed to restore partial power to the facility. Emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in a dim red glow. Terry accessed the communication systems, quickly establishing a link with Ambassador Reeves. "Ambassador," Terry said, relief evident in his voice, "we've managed to restore partial power, but the situation is still critical." Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom, heavy with tension. "Thank goodness you're all right. We have a new development. The alien observers have made an offer. They're willing to provide technology that could stabilize your condition." Terry felt a spark of hope, quickly tempered by suspicion. "What's the catch?" "They want exclusive rights to study you and any resulting technologies," Reeves replied grimly. Terry exchanged looks with Xena and Zara, seeing his own conflicted feelings mirrored in their eyes. Before they could discuss the offer, an alert flashed across the main screen. "Ambassador," Terry said, his voice tight with urgency, "we have another problem. The dormant virus fragments have been reactivated by the power surge. They're spreading through the embassy's network." "Can you contain it?" Reeves asked, alarm evident in his tone. Terry closed his eyes, reaching out with his newfound abilities. He could see the virus, a complex web of malicious code spreading through the system. To his surprise, he recognized elements of both human and denobulan programming languages intertwined in its structure. "We'll do our best," Terry replied, opening his eyes. "But Ambassador, there's something strange about this virus. I think it might have been created as a collaborative effort between humans and denobulans." A heavy silence followed his words. The implications were staggering. Could there be a hidden faction working to undermine relations between their species? As Terry, Xena, and Zara prepared to confront this new threat, The containment field holding back the alien predator began to flicker. Time was running out, and the challenges before them seemed to multiply with each passing moment. The fate of human-denobulan relations hung in the balance, and the actions of this unlikely trio would determine the course of interstellar diplomacy for years to come. As Terry processed the implications of the virus's hybrid nature, a sudden jolt of awareness surged through him. His heightened senses, now intertwined with the embassy's systems, detected a subtle shift in the digital landscape. "Wait," he said, his voice tight with concentration. "There's something else here." Xena and Zara moved closer, their bioluminescent glow intensifying as they linked their minds with Terry's. Together, they delved deeper into the embassy's network, their hybrid physiology allowing them to interface on a level previously thought impossible. As they navigated the complex web of data, hidden files and encrypted information began to reveal themselves. Terry's eyes widened as he pieced together the fragments of a shocking truth. "This goes beyond the virus," he whispered, his voice trembling. "Look at this." He projected the information onto a nearby screen, revealing documents detailing a secret joint human-denobulan research project. The trio stared in disbelief as they read about experiments aimed at creating hybrid beings with enhanced abilities. Zara's hand flew to her mouth. We were test subjects?" Terry nodded grimly. "The pheromone crisis was a cover. Our transformation was intentional." The weight of this revelation settled over them, casting their entire mission in a new light. Before they could fully process the implications, an alert flashed across the screen. "Unauthorized shuttle approaching," Xena read aloud, her voice sharp with concern. They watched as the shuttle bypassed standard security protocols, landing in a restricted area of the embassy grounds. Terry quickly accessed the external cameras, zooming in on the figure emerging from the craft. "That's impossible," he breathed, recognizing the haggard face of Dr. Elias Vorn, a human scientist believed to have died months ago. As Dr. Vorn made his way towards the embassy, Terry, Xena, and Zara exchanged uncertain glances. Their newly forged bond thrummed with a mixture of hope and apprehension. "We need answers," Terry said firmly. "Let's meet him halfway." They moved swiftly through the corridors, their hybrid abilities allowing them to easily navigate the chaotic embassy. As they approached the entrance, they saw Dr. Vorn stumbling towards them, his eyes wild with urgency. "Thank God I found you," he gasped, clutching a data pad to his chest. "We don't have much time." Terry stepped forward, his skin shimmering with suppressed energy. "Dr. Vorn, we thought you were dead. What's going on here?" The scientist's eyes darted nervously between the three hybrids. "I faked my death to escape the project. I couldn't be part of it anymore, not after I realized what we were doing." He held out the data pad, his hands shaking. "Your hybrid state is unstable. Without intervention, you'll experience catastrophic cellular breakdown within hours." Xena's eyes narrowed. "And you can help us?" Before Dr. Vorn could respond, a deafening explosion rocked the embassy. Alarms blared as the building shook violently around them. "What was that?" Zara shouted over the din. Dr. Vorn's face paled. "It's General Crixus. He must have learned about the project. He'll see you as a threat to denobulan security." Another explosion sent tremors through the floor. Terry accessed the embassy's security feeds, his heart sinking as he saw denobulan ships launching a full-scale attack on the facility. "This is going to start a war," Xena said, her voice tight with fear. Terry looked at his companions, then at Dr. Vorn. The weight of their decision pressed down on him, the fate of two species hanging in the balance. "We need to stop this," he said firmly. "Our condition will have to wait." Zara nodded, purpose etched on her face. "Agreed. We can't let this escalate further." They rushed back to the control room, leaving a protesting Dr. Vorn in their wake. As they entered, Ambassador Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom. "Terry, what's happening down there?" Terry's fingers flew over the controls, activating the embassy's defensive systems. "Ambassador, we're under attack by General Crixus. He knows about the hybrid project." There was a moment of stunned silence before Reeves responded. "Dear God, I'll try to establish emergency communications with Earth and the Denobulan High Council. Hold them off as long as you can. As the ambassador signed off, Terry turned to Xena and Zara. We need to create a defensive perimeter. If we can buy enough time for diplomacy to work, we might be able to prevent all-out war. They nodded in unison, their hybrid physiology allowing them to communicate on a level deeper than words. As one, they reached out with their minds, interfacing directly with the embassy's systems. Energy coursed through their bodies as they activated shields and countermeasures. Outside, denobulan weapons fire splashed harmlessly against the newly reinforced barriers. But the strain of maintaining such complex systems took its toll. Terry felt a sharp pain lance through his body, a warning sign of the cellular instability Dr. Vorn had mentioned. Gritting his teeth, he pushed through the discomfort. We need to do more. We need to show them the power we possess, make them see that this conflict is futile. Xena and Zara nodded, understanding his intent without words. They joined hands, forming a circle in the center of the control room. As they concentrated, their bioluminescence grew brighter, pulsing in sync with their shared heartbeat. Energy crackled around them, growing in intensity until it burst outward in a massive wave. The energy field expanded rapidly, enveloping the entire embassy in a shimmering dome of power. Outside, weapons fire from both human and denobulan forces fizzled harmlessly against the barrier. Ships attempting to breach the field found their systems temporarily disabled, forced to retreat to a safe distance. The abrupt cessation of hostilities created a moment of stunned silence. In that quiet, Terry used the embassy's communications array to broadcast a message to all parties. This is Terry Chen, speaking on behalf of the hybrid beings created by the Joint Human Denobulan Project. We call for an immediate ceasefire and open dialogue. Further aggression will be met with defensive action, but we seek only peace between our species. As the message echoed across the battlefield, Terry, Xena, and Zara maintained their energy field. But with each passing moment, the strain on their unstable hybrid physiology grew. Pain racked their bodies, and Terry could feel his cellular structure beginning to break down. Just as it seemed they could hold out no longer, Dr. Vorn burst into the control room, his eyes wide with a mixture of awe and terror. "What you're doing is incredible," he gasped, "but it's killing you. I've interfaced with the alien observer's technology. There might be a way to stabilize your condition, but it requires an enormous amount of energy that can only be safely channeled through your hybrid physiology." Terry exchanged glances with Xena and Zara, all of them acutely aware of the choice before them. They could maintain the field, preventing further bloodshed but risking their own lives, or they could lower their defenses to undergo Dr. Vorn's procedure, potentially saving themselves but leaving the embassy vulnerable. As pain surged through his body, Terry opened his mouth to speak, the fate of two worlds hanging on his next words. Words. The weight of their decision pressed heavily upon him, the fate of two species hanging in the balance. In that moment of crisis, Terry, Xena, and Zara shared a look of silent understanding. Their hybrid physiology allowed them to communicate on a level deeper than words, their empathic bond pulsing with shared thoughts and emotions. With a collective nod, they made their choice. Terry took a deep breath, his skin rippling with patterns of light. "We're lowering the field," he announced, his voice steady despite the pain racking his body. As they began to relinquish control of the protective barrier, Dr. Vorn sprang into action. He rushed to a nearby console, his fingers flying over the controls as he prepared to initiate the stabilization procedure. Suddenly, the air around them shimmered. The alien observers, silent until now, made their presence known in a spectacular fashion. A massive holographic projection materialized above the embassy, visible to both human and denobulan forces. The image showed Terry, Xena, and Zara's heroic efforts to maintain peace, their bodies glowing with strain as they held the protective field in place. But the projection didn't stop there. It continued, revealing the truth behind the secret hybrid project. Gasps of shock and dismay echoed across the battlefield as both sides witnessed the extent of the deception that had brought them to this point. Seizing the moment of stunned silence, Terry turned to his companions. "We need to reach them all," he said, his voice tight with urgency, "while we still can." Xena nodded, her luminous skin pulsing in agreement. "Let's do it." The trio joined hands, channeling their remaining strength into the embassy's communication systems. Their voices, unified and amplified, rang out across the battlefield and beyond. "This is Terry Chen, Xena, and Zara," they began, their words overlapping in perfect harmony. "We are the products of the joint human denobulin project you've just witnessed. We stand before you as living proof of what our species can achieve together." Their bodies trembled with the effort of maintaining the connection, but they pressed on. "We've seen the destruction that fear and mistrust can bring, but we've also experienced the incredible potential of our combined strengths. We implore you, please, end this conflict. Let our existence be a bridge between our cultures, not a catalyst for war." As their impassioned plea concluded, Terry, Xena, and Zara collapsed to the floor, their bodies racked with convulsions. The strain of their efforts had pushed their unstable physiology to its limits. The response was immediate. Ambassador Reeves's voice crackled over the intercom, filled with a mixture of awe and concern. "Hold on, we're coming to help. General Crixus has agreed to a ceasefire. Medical teams from both sides are on their way." Dr. Vorn knelt beside the trio, his face etched with worry. "We need to start the procedure now," he said urgently. "Their cellular structure is breaking down rapidly." As if in response to his words, the alien observer's technology hummed to life. A soft, pulsating light enveloped Terry, Xena, and Zara, lifting their convulsing bodies into the air. Dr. Vorn worked frantically, interfacing the alien tech with his own equipment. "Here goes," he muttered, initiating the stabilization sequence. Waves of energy coursed through the suspended trio. Their bioluminescence flared erratically, casting the room in a dazzling display of intertwining human and denobulin light patterns. The air crackled with power as the procedure reached its peak intensity. For several heart-stopping moments, it seemed as though the effort might fail. The trio's bodies arched in silent agony, their light pulsing wildly. Then gradually, the chaotic flashes began to slow, coalescing into a steady, harmonious glow. As the energy field dissipated, Terry, Xena, and Zara gently descended to the floor. Their bodies, no longer racked with pain, now radiated a soft, stable light. The procedure had worked. Slowly, their eyes fluttered open. Terry was the first to speak, his voice filled with wonder. "We're okay?" Xena sat up, examining her hands with amazement. "More than okay, I think." Zara joined them, her movements fluid and graceful. "It's like everything has fallen into place." As they stood, they realized that their appearances had settled into a perfect blend of human and denobulin features. Their skin retained a subtle luminescence, and their eyes held a depth that spoke of their unique nature. Before they could fully process their transformation, the doors to the control room burst open. Medical teams from both human and denobulin forces rushed in, followed closely by Ambassador Reeves and a stern-looking denobulin who could only be General Crixus. The newcomers stopped short, staring in awe at the transformed trio. Ambassador Reeves was the first to find his voice. "My God," he breathed. "You've done it! You've actually done it!" General Crixus stepped forward, his earlier hostility replaced by a look of grudging respect. I may have been hasty in my judgment," he admitted. "Perhaps there is more to this situation than I initially believed." As the medical teams began their examinations, confirming the trio's stable condition, Terry turned to Xena and Zara. Their empathic bond hummed with shared emotion, relief, excitement, and a touch of uncertainty about what the future might hold. "So," Terry said, a small smile playing on his lips, "what do we do now?" Xena's eyes sparkled with persistence. "We keep going. We show them what we can do." Zara nodded, her gaze sweeping over the gathered humans and denobulins. "We bridge the gap," she said softly. "We become the link our peoples need." As they stood together, their bodies glowing softly in the dim light of the control room, Terry, Xena, and Zara knew that their journey was nowhere near the end. The crisis might have passed, but the real work of bringing their two species together was just beginning. With their unique abilities and unbreakable bond, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, Please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.